Joe Biden absolutely crushed it yesterday afternoon at the NAACP conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. One of my favorite comments he made was a little bit of a twist on that famous Washington saying about how you don't get into politics to find friends.
Harry Truman was president, was often counted out. He was also known for something else. The story goes, Truman said, if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog. Well, guess what? After the last couple of weeks, I know what he means. But that's why it's so good to have real friends. I'm not being solicitous. I have real friends. So many of you had my back, and I think I've had yours as well. And I will never forget it.
And now that is especially funny, given somebody whose dogs have misbehaved and who has some members of his own party equally biting at the hands that feed them. Now, the thing that really knocked my socks off was his invoking the really insulting and racist comment that Donald Trump recently made, implying that there were certain kinds of jobs that Black people in America held that would be somehow taken over by people coming in from Mexico illegally. You might remember this is something Donald said at the debate back in Atlanta a few weeks ago.
That his big kill on the Black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking Black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking Black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Okay. And, of course, that just lit up Black Twitter a few weeks ago. And so here's what Joe Biden had to say to this crowd.
Well, I'm serious. Go figure. From a guy who spread the birthism lie against Barack Obama, saying he wasn't born in America and he wasn't a U.S. citizen. Of course, here's what he thinks of Black jobs. I love his phrase, Black jobs. It tells a lot about the man and about his character. Folks, I know what a Black job is. It's a vice president of the United States. I know what a Black job is. The first Black president in American history, Barack Obama.
Now, outside of the context of a rally, Joe Biden is also working on some plans to reform the United States Supreme Court. Yes, you heard it, at long last. And it makes a lot of sense. What we are hearing so far floated is the concept of having Congress institute terms of office so that instead of serving for life, a Supreme Court seat might be for a period of years. Let's keep our eyes on that idea. My second story today is a spoiler alert. No, not the kind of warning that someone gives you before they tell you a piece of the plot of a movie that you may in the future like to see. But in this case, a spoiler alert about RFK Jr. Some video just leaked. It is either from a videographer or perhaps his son, where RFK is in a room listening to Donald Trump speak to him on the telephone. And as you can hear, when you listen, it becomes very clear that Donald is in cahoots with RFK, trying to get him on board so that they can together crush Joe Biden and also, of course, the future of our democracy.
I agree with you, man. Something's wrong with that whole system. And, and it's the doctors you find. Remember I said I want to do small doses. Small doses. When you feed a baby, Bobby, a vaccination that has like 38 different vaccines, and it looks like it's meant for a horse, not a 10-pound or 20-pound baby. It looks like you should be giving a horse this And do you ever see the size of it, right? It's just massive. And then you see the baby all of a sudden starting to change radically. I've seen it too many times. And then you hear that it doesn't have an impact, right? But you and I talked about that a long time ago. And anyway, I would love you to do stuff. And I think it'll be so good for you and so big for you. And we're going to win. We're going to win. We're way ahead of the guy. And, he's interesting. It was very nice, actually. He called me. And he said, how did you choose to move to the right? Because, so I guess that's, people say, if I was looking straight up, right? He said, I said, I was just showing a chart. I didn't have to tell him the chart was on all the people pouring into our country, right? But I just turned my head to show the chart. And something wrapped me. It felt like a giant, like the world's largest mosquito. And it was a bullet going right. What do they call that, an AR-15 or something? That was a big gun. Those are pretty tough guns, right?
My third story is on Monday. The top authorities inside of NBC pulled Morning Joe off the air, and they did so in a way that appears to have been deceptive. Let's take a look at what Joe Scarborough says about that happening, and even his threat to quit entirely if they try that on him again.
I wanted to briefly talk to our friends and viewers that watch us every day. And talk about what happened yesterday. We were told in no uncertain terms on Sunday evening that there was going to be one news feed across all NBC News channels yesterday. The Today Show would be Lester Holt, other people that you worked with on Sunday, and that was going to be one news feed across all NBC News channels, that we were going to stay as a network in breaking news mode throughout all day yesterday. That did not happen. We don't know why that didn't happen. Our team was not given a good answer as to why that didn't happen, but it didn't happen. We were also told it was going to happen throughout the day. And I guess after there was such a strong blowback about yesterday morning, I guess they changed their plans. And so those plans changed as well. So it didn't. We've talked about it off the air. We'll talk about it on the air because we talk about everything on the air. We were very surprised. We were very disappointed. And if we had known that there wasn't going to be the one news feed from NBC News across all NBC News channels, Willie, we obviously would have been in yesterday morning.
Okay, and what do I think that the mainstream corporate media should be doing instead of either pulling critics off the air or completely bending the knee for who they perceive to be the future winners of the 2024 election? Well, what I think they should be doing is reporting, asking tough questions. For one, where is the medical report letting us know exactly where Donald Trump was shot, whether he got stitches, what the nature of the projectile was? Was it a piece of glass? Was he actually nicked by a bullet? We need to know, and it has been 3 days since this happened. Now, before we turn to Crazy Town, I have a bonus for story, and it is in part sweet and in part bitter, in that I was pleased to hear that a jury convicted Senator Robert Menendez in connection with the bribery and the foreign agent and the obstruction charges. Now, why was he convicted? Because he should have been. A jury of his peers heard months of evidence. And remember, this was not his first time at the rodeo. This guy has been trouble for years, and it is time now for him to step down from his Senate seat. Fortunately, if he keeps to his promise, he will not run on a third-party ticket in the fall. And now, normally, I would say that anyone who is a convicted felon does not stand a chance of election, but we can see that Donald Trump is the leading Republican candidate in the country right now, and not even the New York Times is asking him to step out of the race, even though they say he is not qualified, something that they have asked Joe Biden to do. Yes, that is the part where I am in part still bitter. But there is another piece to this, which is as follows. You know that the MAGA Republicans, including Donald Trump, have accused the U.S. Justice Department of being in the pocket of Joe Biden, the Democratic president. And yet, let's take a look at this. We have a very prominent U.S. senator, and we have the president's own son. Both of them have been convicted. But what has happened to all the charges against Donald Trump at the federal level? Well, those were delayed because Merrick Garland decided to wait before he appointed a special counsel. The justification for appointing a special counsel in November of 2022 was that it was necessary because Donald Trump was going to be a candidate for office. But we knew that. We knew that as soon as Garland took office in March of 2021. This was an unconscionable delay, knowing all the delays that would follow. Any of us could have anticipated this. And so I just want to point out that it is absolutely untrue that there is a bias against Republicans. Instead of dealing with the allegations in the Mueller report, instead of dealing with the insurrection immediately with the appointment of a special counsel, as was called for by people like George Conway, by me, by so many other people, he delayed and he meandered and he cared more about his reputation for being even-keeled, that he has now ushered in what might now be the end of democracy. So much for trying to restore integrity to our institutions. And welcome to Crazy Town. Crazy Town today is the Republican Party's efforts to maintain a database on every single gun owner in this country, because they are hopefully leaning to the right and they will then be able to reach out to them and flood their mailboxes and spam their emails and texts with information about the Second Amendment. And so this is crazy because they are the same people who have always claimed that they are afraid that there will be some kind of tracking of people with guns for the purpose of somehow taking them away. And you might say, well, it's fine, because if Republicans keep a list of detailed information about gun owners, they will never use that for ill. Well, don't you know? Haven't you paid attention to the fact that databases often get hacked? And we know this because it has now been revealed that the father of the man who attempted to assassinate the president was rated at the highest levels of gun loyalists in his area of Pennsylvania.
Channel 4 News can reveal that Thomas Crooks's father, the owner of the rifle that was used to shoot at Donald Trump, was held on a database and profiled by the former president's election campaign and identified by them as a strong Republican supporter, gun owner, and hunter. The information was compiled as part of a secret Republican project to gather data on millions of gun owners across America and use it to target pro-gun messages in the run-up to the 2016 election.
And here's why they did it. The city of Pittsburgh is a key battleground in the critical swing state of Pennsylvania, so voters here are always heavily profiled and targeted by political parties, like the Trump campaign in 2016, which held voters' details on a database, including, as we've discovered, the shooter's family, Matthew Crooks and his wife Mary, who lived here at 2506 Milford Drive in Bethel Park. We know they profiled them using secret computer models to identify likely gun owners and enthusiasts, and Mr. Crooks scored very highly, 0.99 out of 1 for being a gun owner and 0.95 out of 1 for being a hunter. In fact, out of more than 19,000 people in Bethel Park who were profiled, Mr. Crooks was in the top 20, and the database classified him as a strong GOP or Republican voter.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.